Hello, everyone. My name is Nahed Mansour, and I'm the Curator of Programs and Education at the Gardner Museum. Welcome to our 3-work series. You will notice your mics and videos are muted and the chat option has been disabled. However, there will be a Q&A following today's conversation, and so we invite you to send us questions through the Q&A function at any point. Also, please note that this program is being recorded and live streamed through Facebook Live. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that Toronto is located on the treaty lands and ancestral territory of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, the Petun, and the Mississaugas of the Credit Nation. The community we work in is the home to many Indigenous peoples from across Turtle Island, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to learn and live on this land. Today, we are very excited to welcome Eddy Firmin as our guest speaker. He will be in conversation with Sequoia Miller, the Gardner Museum's Chief Curator. Eddy Firmin will speak to works related to the theme of decolonizing. I'll now turn off my video and mic and hand it over to Sequoia.
Okay, thank you, Nahed, and hello, welcome, greetings to everyone. Thank you so much for being here. We're delighted that you all could join us today for this conversation with Eddy Firmin regarding his work. And Eddy, I'd invite you now to turn on your camera, open up your mic, and I'll introduce our participants to you. Dr. Eddy Firmin is originally from the French Caribbean, from the island of Guadeloupe. He holds a doctorate in arts, studies, and practices from the Université de Québec à Montréal, and a master's degree from the Visual Arts School of La Havre in France. Eddy's work is encompassing painting, sculpture, video, installation, poetry, and performance, and of course, ceramics. The fundamental questions underlying his approach are, in particular, how the modalities of knowledge production in colonized countries alienate the imagination and how to restore a way of being in the world. Guided by a quest for identity, exiled in Quebec, Firmin combines his two heritages, or double consciousness, and affirms a praxis that links art and life, art and intelligible knowledge, art and transmission, art and resistance. In doing so, Firmin inaugurates a new way of existing and experiencing and producing knowledge about the world. And with that, I'll say welcome and thank you for being here, Eddy.
What a wonderful presentation, oh my God. Thank you, thank you.
Well, here we get to look at lots of wonderful works. I'm going to, let's see, begin our slideshow. Okay, so again, the format of this conversation between us is centered around 3 of your artworks, but actually 3 sort of groups or kind of clusters of artworks. And we'll begin today by looking at 3 masks, which we're seeing here on the screen. The 3 masks, well, maybe I'll ask you actually to start by describing what we're looking at, kind of what were you thinking about? What did you make this out of? What are we looking at?
First of all, before talking about what we see, I would like to say that ceramics actually articulates a lot in my practice. It became something it's at the center of my practice since maybe 10 years ago. So this 3 works, it's like what I did 6 years ago and what I'm doing now. It's showing like a path in time also. And here we can see there's 2 faces of mine. The Chanel one on my, I don't know, but on my left, and on the right, another one of mine. And in the middle, this is my daughter's face. And all is about those one, this triptych is about transmission. So, yeah.
Can I ask you to speak a little bit more about ceramic and what the medium sort of means to you, or why you feel like it's a potent tool for the larger sets of questions that you're asking?
Okay. The process of ceramics, meaning building with clay, then firing and so on, remind me the process of creolization that at the bottom of the Caribbean culture, because they are born from that. What is creolization? Glissant, and in the Caribbean discourse, remind us that the world is facing what the Caribbean culture faced centuries ago. What is it? It's the unpredictable of creolization. You can predict what is a métissage, a mix, like a mixed race or a mix of something, but you cannot predict what is creolization. And meaning that because there is too much storytelling, too much culture, too much origin at stake. Okay, this is not possible to have. We have to live with the unpredictable of life, of tomorrow. And then, for me, ceramics is a lot about that, because we cannot predict exactly what will happen after the firing. Sometimes you have great surprise, sometimes you don't. And I believe every ceramics, every people who work with this material face this kind of uncertain, this unpredictable of the work. You have to live with that. You have to be aware that sometimes you get what you want and sometimes you don't.
Right, for sure. I guess I love this connection of ceramics and creolization. I think there's also this aspect of transformation in ceramics that is through fire, typically, or through kind of the act of hardening or being fired, that opens up this possibility, or sort of the notion of something unpredictable or new being created sort of happens through this kind of transformative process of fire. And when you think of sort of the broader notion of creolization as Glissant proposed it, do you feel that there's a sort of transformative component that's embodied or embedded into the idea of creolization? Like, is there an analogy for that fire, that kind of transformative sense?
Yeah, it's and he used to say that creolization is a process, and it's not something achieved. It's always moving with new components. And for me, ceramic is also, you know, clay. It's earth and fire. You know, what else can be so close to creation? It's the origin of the earth, the world, the universe, earth and fire. So rock, stones, fire, heat. So yeah, nothing. That's maybe why I love that, and I learned to love some cracks in the work. You know, at the beginning you add that.
Right.
And when I made a residency in Japan a few years ago, and I went to the mountain, and you know, this place, there's a pop-up place, and there's this guy. I went to in front of a window, and I saw like a huge vase with a beautiful, wonderful, with a huge crack in it. And I said to my friend, "Oh my God, that's so beautiful, but there is a crack in it. So that's wrong." And he said to me, "Why? No, it's not wrong." He said, "When it came out of the kiln, it went like that. Is it look natural for you?" And I said, "Yeah, it's kind of natural." And he said, "That is. You understand now how earth and fire is working. There is something natural happening, and you have to let it live. You have to accept it." So yeah, and sometimes I'm just playing some, not on those one, but on some of my pieces, I'm playing with two kind of clay making little cracks, and it's like I love that now. So not too much, but it's like playing with the cracks. So
yeah, right, for sure.
I
I
love
guess
this technology.
coming back to the 3 masks that we're looking at, they're so finely executed and so finely crafted, and they're beautiful. They're very something that you want to very much, or that I guess want to very much sort of touch or hold. They're really like exquisitely created. And thinking about ceramic as, or really any medium, but really ceramic as having these cracks being a dynamic and a beautiful part of it. What's the role of sort of beauty and skill and refinement in your work in general, but as we see it in these 3 objects?
Oh, you're asking me a question that I want to answer later in the talk, but I can reply now. This is what came from my PhD. You know, remind that I'm an artist working on decolonization. What means decolonization? It's not a process linked to the earth. It's a process in a process. What that mean? It's meaning that I'm working on what have been erased by the experience of colonization, and how I can restore what have been erased. So all my practice is a way to restore memory. Okay. So in my PhD, I asked myself, okay, what have been erased? What kind of practice? And I went to Groka. Groka is one of the unique form of art have been allowed on my island during slavery and after. And there is one thing interesting. It's locance. Locance in Groka, meaning the way of mastering double meanings and have a technical skill to convince. Okay, so meaning that you have to think beautifully, but with a double meaning. So beautifully, it's like to blur the vision of the master. So you will say, oh, that's beautiful. What a wonderful song. And underline, we are transmitting information between each other and saying, okay, after 5, we're gonna knock this guy down. We're gonna fight this guy, okay? So what I did is understanding that beauty is part of an history, how we make art in my space. So I take these skills, and I put it in my work, and I said, okay, I have to do 2 things: double language and use beauty. So I'm using beauty, that's what you see, and a double language. And I'm saying, and what you see now, it's sign like Louis Vuitton and Chanel, meaning that there is a discourse of refusal. You know, there is a counter discourse, meaning that this is I'm drowning in the new form of colonization. And my daughter, there in the center, it's a kind of passation to my daughter. What I mean is like, okay, I'm working on that today, but darling, tomorrow you will have to face that also. So today it's my kind of, it's my problem, but tomorrow it will be yours. You have to be aware earlier. So as in Groka, art is also a way to transmit knowledge. Art is also a way to teach. So I'm teaching to my daughter. So when she saw her face, she knows deeply that I'm talking to her. I'm not talking to someone else. I'm talking to her. So yeah, let's say that because we have a lot of stuff to say. So.
Yeah, I have about 500 questions come to mind from some of what you've just been speaking to so wonderfully. I think so. Looking at these now at these two masks, and I think we're seeing here in this image a little bit more accurately their relationship of scale, and that your daughter, the mask of your daughter, is slightly smaller than the more life-size mask of your self-portrait. Staying with this idea of beauty for a second and blur, which I think is great to bring into the conversation, and I'm thinking of Black and Blur, the Fred Moten book, where he discusses some of these questions of of creating that blur and creating that a sort of a depth of space, basically, for these multiple meanings to emerge. I guess I'm thinking also about the idea of beauty in these specific works through the handling of the clay, as I initially asked you, but then also through the Louis Vuitton, through the Chanel and the other mask, through this idea of sort of luxury consumerism, and whether in a way there are different sort of registers of beauty or registers of luxury or indulgence maybe, and if these create different different sensibilities of distance, I guess, or of different layers of the doubleness of meaning that you're speaking to.
Yeah, but what is at stake also, it's the sign like Louis Vuitton or Chanel refer to power. Okay, you showing that you have power when you're carrying this kind of stuff. It's also a statue, okay, meaning that you carrying when you're carrying that, you're showing where are you in the society, even it's wrong. Okay, but aesthetics or beauty, this kind of sense of beauty in our daily life, we're gonna buy a bag, even for women. This is strong, and we're gonna talk about that later in the work because I have some to show. This work is asking, okay, I'm telling two stuff to be more precise. I'm saying, okay, my ancestor and we are carrying an old way of colonization, okay? That's carrying our body, slavery, etc., etc. And the new form, it's like, okay, we have one of top of the other. So we have two kind of colonization injunction on our faces. So I'm carrying that. She's gonna carrying that also. So yeah. But maybe we can switch work.
Sure. I think with this work, perhaps you can speak a little more. I'll just ask you a very broad question to start. If you could speak more about the project that both this and the previous works were initially presented in, and then more about how it connects to your overall approach as an artist and as a scholar.
Okay. This work is about my ancestor. Her name is Virginie Carillon. And this is the first that we found in my family, okay? It was numbered on paper, okay? We cannot find them in the archive. So, is it okay? I have like a glitch on my screen. It's okay?
I'm okay right now. You cut out for me for a second, but I think we're good.
Yeah. And what is interesting in that one, we might, I said before that I'm working on memory, and I'm working on how to say, restore this memory. But I'm working also on delinking the relation of power between the two components of what I am. I'm part South from Africa. I'm a part North because I'm raised in that. So I cannot take out a part and said, I'm that or that. That's not making sense for me. I'm not against, but I need to deal with two kind of stuff, two origin. But more than that, what is interesting in that one, it's saying a story of violence, but a violence of how two cultures so different became to have, how to say, a way so different to pass knowledge, because I have a knowledge, you have a knowledge, and they have been passed on to you according a kind of politics of knowledge, okay? And what happened on that one is what about I'm talking. In Occident, as many culture, transmitting knowledge have been relayed on something outside the body, meaning paper, writing, and so on, the archive, okay, outside the body. In several cultures, a lot of culture actually, transmission of knowledge relay on body. As we say in Africa, when all man is dying, it's a library who's burning. So we have this two way of seeing the world, of approaching the world, getting violent contact, okay? And what that means? It's that in this contact, it's not only the culture, it's not only the body, it's the way of transmitting knowledge have been how to say it, the way
suppressed or pushed down,
suppressed, or under, put under. Way, this part of mine, since Pliny the Elder, who are usually who say it's the father of modern science, is the first who, in his book, he wrote Historia Naturalis, and it's super. How to say it? It's separate stuff. I mean, things have been discriminated and incriminated. But this two way of seeing stuff is deeply human. If you cannot incriminate or discriminate something, everything is the same for you in the street. Cannot discriminate your father from your mother. That's a nonsense. Okay. So what is interesting, actually, it's that it's Occident create since the 18th centuries, all the society have been centered around science. Not that mean that it's bad. I'm not referring to that question in terms of bad or good. This is not the way I'm thinking. But it means that everything has to be separate, discriminate, incriminate. And incriminate to the bottom. It's really strong now. And what I'm saying is that all the society have been turned around science. One of the pillar of the science is incriminate and discriminate also, but strongly. Even there, you're going to make bombs instead of making new chemical stuff with power. And what I'm saying, it's all the space have been through that scope, meaning that even her society have been studied, discriminated. She's have been put out of the human world and declared in the animal world. Okay, and that's why there is a lot of little frames with drawing inside. And because this dominant way of seeing knowledge suppress our knowledge. And what I'm saying in this violent dialogue, she's making a beautiful finger, but this finger is not for the spectator, but it's for this, how to say it, the worst. What happened? How can I say that? Not the worst, but what happened when you are making too much? It's too much. We cannot see the world like that. It has to be more soft. And she's saying, okay, what is my place in that? What is my place with my politics of knowledge? Can we find a way to mix that? And also, one last thing, the frame, referring to that stage, to that way of seeing the world, like in Little Square. You know, I make a PhD, so I know it really well. You know, we're working in square, you know, with discipline. Everything has to be separate from something else. And Occident is the only culture who produce frames around artworks. And what I'm saying, it's like all the artwork, all the art system referring in Occident, following this path, making frames, you know?
Right, right.
With Little Square, you go through our windows, so.
That's because if we didn't have the little square, then we wouldn't have art, right? That's like what lets you know that it exists, I guess. I guess, so I have a bunch of questions here. So one of them has to do with this idea of knowledge of recuperation or kind of recovery of memory, gaining memory back that's been lost, as well as this distinction or the separation that you mentioned between a kind of an intellectual or language-based memory or understanding or scientific on the one hand, and a physical or a bodily embodied knowledge. And I'm wondering about your own education and your own choice to pursue a doctorate degree, to get a PhD. And you've mentioned going to Japan to study, and you were in France, of course. And I'm curious how you think for yourself you balance these systems of knowledge within the act of recuperation, and how do you understand for yourself what you will accomplish, or how you will grow as a person through making something, or through writing, or through research, and sort of where language and objects and making and writing, how they all fit with each other within this project?
Oh, that's a huge question. Oh,
yeah, sorry.
Oh, tell me what angle you want me to, because it's a huge
Sure.
one.
So to narrow it down, a smaller question would be, how did you decide to pursue a PhD? Why was that important to you, and what did you hope to accomplish?
Okay. You know, what I'm talking in English. By the way, that's I'm using something I didn't. I wasn't raised in. So, meaning that it's that I was looking for something that I didn't understand. Okay, what that mean? Meaning that what I'm trying to articulate today, I didn't have a clue of what happened. Okay, I just have this sensation that something is going wrong. You know, it's like carrying something and said, okay, I cannot find a solution. I have this sensation that my African part and my Occidental part are like, you know, there is a friction between them. But how can I articulate that? That was my main question. And I started a PhD somewhere else. Not in France, because I have an history with my colonizer. So I want to get out of that to understand a little bit better what I am. So that's why I make a PhD. I didn't make PhD because I wanted to understand what is aesthetics or what is art. No, I have a deep question inside of me. And that's strange because what I'm explaining to you, I have to explain the same stuff to my director who didn't even have a clue of what I'm talking about. So it's like walking in the dark. Okay, so that's why I make a PhD to articulate that. Because creation, how I say, creation is a way of decolonization, a ways of decolonization. So creation is that for me, and thinking it's the same stuff. So both of them are working together. So I cannot take out thinking about what I'm doing and what I'm doing about thinking. So
yeah, I can relate to that a lot. And in terms of this, the sort of having this understanding on one level, but also needing to kind of go into it through with another set of tools or with another kind of set of approaches. Absolutely. One question that comes up for me in your response is around Canada, actually, and what your sense is of being in Canada, or being, I don't know if you think of yourself as Canadian entirely or to some extent. And you mentioned not wanting to pursue the degree in France, as it's a different relationship with your colonizer, as you described it. And I'm curious how you think of Canada and your place in Canada in relation to these sets of questions around decolonization and the Caribbean in particular.
My ancestor is what they call Bossale. Okay, Bossale is the new slave coming in the new area. Okay, that he have no clue of where he is. He have no clue of what it will be tomorrow. You have to create a new space of living. He's reminding, he have this memory of his past life, and he have to build something there. And I'm kind of like that. I'm deeply Bossale, deeply that, meaning that like my ancestor, I'm everywhere. We have this kind of, every Caribbean live with this little stuff like that, this sense of being a kind of Bossale, meaning that you are there, but you are from someone else, and you are from everywhere, and I'm feeling that here strongly. And you said, what kind of relation can I have with? I'm really happy to be here, and maybe because I don't have this story of this background that I have with my former colonizer, I'm a little bit more fresh, and it's allowed me to say stuff that I cannot say if I'm in France, for example. So yeah, it's have this. This is something with, it's like two sides. One side is it's allow you to do stuff. The other side, it's that you are a bossal. That means that you're like in between guy. You are an in between. You cannot be fixed somewhere. It's like you guy, what I'm gonna do with you? Are you with us? Are you against us? Where are you? Where are you? And I love this place. This in between place actually is it's really uncomfortable, but people cannot begin to comprehend what is living with what I was saying, the uncertain of life, the unpredictable. I'm living with that, and all my work is moved by that. So it's hard to be like in between, because I'm in between. I'm in between France, in between Caribbean and Canada. So So, and between even in my language, so speaking French, Creole, and a little bit of English. Sorry for breaking your ears, but
no, not at all, for sure. In a way, you know, as I'm listening to you and watching you, I'm looking at your shirt that has kind of a tropical kind of island pattern and a nice heavy scarf on it. That's a little bit of that kind of in-betweenness too, and literalized in some way. But I think what also comes to mind is again an idea that you began with, which is the creolization, that in-betweenness opens up a possibility for something new. And if you find that actually you are able to say things here, meaning in Canada or in Quebec, that you have not been able to find a place to say, then it would seem like a generative or a positive place.
Definitely.
Let's go to the third work that we'll be discussing. And so this piece is part of an installation, and we can see that it includes a furniture element in the center and then a number of wall elements. So we'll start off with the furniture component, and this actually has a video element that I'd like to play for a little bit for our
maybe we can see the other pieces, the other fragment, then people will understand, yeah, what is in that artwork. Okay.
Maybe we can begin by you describing the video work a bit. And
okay.
Yeah.
First of all, this work is like, I consider this work like a long poem. You know, this is a visual poem. And asking myself how I can transmit again to my daughter. This is like a fear of a father for his daughter. So because I'm interrogating the frame I'm in, how I'm framed in the new form of colonization. And this piece is a chicken coop, okay? But on the Caribbean model. The Caribbean model of the chicken coop, or poultry house, I don't know how to call that, is raised, so you have like 4 feet, and it's raised above the ground. It's a little bit in. So it's meaning that for not, because sometimes rats eating the eggs, and sometimes we have some animal eating little chicken and so on. So we have to raise that in the air. And it reminds me actually how we live in little squares, how actually in that video, the video is three times in my life, I'm performing my little square. I'm performing the strangeness of buying stuff and sleeping, rebuying stuff, sleeping, buying, going to the bank, and so on and so on, and sleeping, and then the day after re-beginning the same stuff, and so on till the end. It's a little bit of madness. So I try to perform that. So with the chicken suit, you know, with because the chicken suit doesn't allow anybody to see my color, to see my race, to see my gender, to say nothing. just a huge chicken. Okay. So I'm walking in, like I'm going to the bank. I went to the bank, for example. I went to the bank and people talking to me, and I'm making like I was in file, you know, waiting my turn. And like this woman say, no, 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 monsieur, it's not your turn. You have to wait. Yeah, I'm a huge chicken, you know, and you're not allowed to go to the bank like with your face mask, you know. All my face wasn't, and
Right.
she just said, Mr. Chicken, this is not your turn. So meaning that people are so stuck in that. We went crazy. We are, there's no meaning in doing that. Where's the place for opening where is the place of the sense of power is going with the sense of buying stuff. So and I went to a store buying fruits, buying. Actually, I didn't buy fruit. I buy a chicken and eggs.
Right.
So and it's same stuff. The guy asked me, okay, Mr. Or Mrs. He didn't say. He say it will be a credit card or debit. So this is the only. That was, oh my God. So, okay, even you are a chicken, it won't change anything. So if you have the money, that's okay. So, yeah. So this is, so I'm kind of performing my little square, my little space of power, you know, buying and so, and with fun. Actually, I have a lot of fun to do that. I went to McDonald's and I bought a Mac chicken. That was fun. So yeah, and the lady just she was laughing. Like, obviously, she was laughing because she didn't saw me before. So yeah, it's like performing like an echo. You know, you sending an image, and people resending you an image, but with full of ridicule. You know, it's like they didn't even say, okay, that's wrong, Mister. Please wait, etc. Last time I made a performance with a collar, you know, with four, a slave collar, like a slave collar with four phones filming me. Oh man, there's two guards who came. They almost break my arm. They don't want me to wear that. They asked me to stop my videos. But when you are a chicken without face, without you all, it's okay. Everything is okay. So yeah. And excuse me, a chicken with credit card.
Right. You have to be a chicken who can pay their way, right? One thing that you're pointing to is humor, I guess, humor or play, and something being funny or unexpected, but a kind of playfulness that that also opens up this possibility for sort of highlighting either the squares that we function in or the arbitrary nature of those squares. And are like in your larger work, is play an important part of how you open up new systems of thinking and new ways of understanding?
Yeah, you know, on the maybe if you can move to the next slide. Those one actually, I began this series with the one on the left, and this mask of my daughter stayed for maybe 1 year in my workspace until I found her mother's bag, you know, and one day just fit together because a purse, a woman purse, and that's strange in English actually, a woman purse. Purse is the way the place you put in your money, okay? The woman purse is like you having this tools for buying stuff, you know? The purse, we go shopping with the purse. The woman purse, you know, it's meaning, and Louis Vuitton, the next one maybe, Louis Vuitton is around that, showing that you have money in your purse, you know, because you have the Louis Vuitton. So the Louis Vuitton showing that you have power like a woman. So, and it's all those questions for my little daughter. It's like, okay, where will be your place in that, darling? What kind of woman you will be? Moreover, we are living in a society, the women's body are hypersexualized, and the Black women body more than the others. So, yeah, asking all these questions. This is, for my daughter, I have some fears, and this is a way of transmitting knowledge also. As I said, transmitting knowledge. Say, okay, darling, what you gonna do with that? Well, how are you gonna move it in your square? You have to be aware of that. Okay, I don't need to explain 1 million stuff. You know, she just have to see my pieces. And as you can see, there is beads, African beads on it. Meaning, where is your identity in that? Full, deeply, how to say, swallowed by the Occidental way of life, or trying to find another path? This is one of my main questions for her, and for every little girl, actually.
Well, the notion of every little girl, I'm wondering how you've spoken very eloquently about your daughter and how part of your work is this goal of knowledge transmission to your daughter. I'm wondering how you think of your audience more broadly. Who else do you see as being important to transmit knowledge to, or to open this space of questioning to?
Obviously, now, you know, as I said, but we didn't mention that, but I'm teaching a course at Laval in the art school of Laval, and meaning that I'm the first Black man teaching in practice and studies of art in the Quebecan space. Yeah, what I mean in that, I mean that it's important to transmit not only knowledge, but experience of an understanding of even life, or culture, of transmission of knowledge, whatever what you want, but transmitting, it's part of one of my goal now. It's like center. It's not directed only to my daughter. My daughter I'm focused on her, okay? But it's open to everybody. So, and maybe that's why I enjoy to be an artist, because my work is open to everybody, so.
Yeah. We're going to go to a question and answer period in just a moment. So participants, if you have questions, now's a great time to type them into the Q&A section. But Eddy, I'd like to ask you one more question before we move to participant questions. You've spoken about and we're looking at really the use of beauty in your work as a way to create a kind of blur and a sort of double consciousness. You've also, in reference to the video, you spoke to the notion of performing within a box or within a coop, within a chicken coop. And in a way, you know, right now, you and I are very much performing in our boxes. We each are a square on each other's screens. So here we are doing it. And the question in there is, what does it mean for your work, for those first three pieces, the first three masks that we looked at, which are coming into the collection of the Gardner Museum? What does it mean to have the work visible in that space? And how do these strategies of blur and questions of audience and performing in a square, how do those resonate with the actual objects in a space like the Gardner Museum?
I believe the object carrying his own history, his own power. I have some friend of mine, like Masimba Wati, who's an artist that I love, is a close friend. And he used to work on the power of object and the thinking of the object, because he is coming from animist culture. So objects have their own thought. I cannot say that my object had his own thought, but I'm not saying that. But I mean, meaning that objects are carrying their own meanings. So let them do their work. And when they are placed like in the Gardner Museum, they are saying something in that space of me, of my culture, of what is the new Bossale, you know, the Bossale, the one is in between, what is saying. So yeah, let the work live, and yeah.
That's great.
I'm so happy that we can talk to people. So not only to my daughter.
I'll accept that, and I'll understand that as a way of saying that the museum is still a place that can be useful. That a museum is a place where meanings can expand, rather than a place whose possibility is limited. And I mean, it is on one level, but but the idea that the ontologies embedded in these objects can emerge through something like a museum. So one question that's come up is a great one, which is how do you know when something has been erased? And maybe I would ask that, or sort of transmit that question, and bring in the work of Saidiya Hartman into the conversation as a historian who, you know, for years now has been working on sort of finding what's been erased, as have so many people who centered their work around slave histories in particular, and some of these legacies where there's less, where the object we were talking about doesn't often survive. So either in relation to Saidiya Hartman or not, how would you think of coming to know what has been erased?
First, you don't know. You have this feeling that something is missing, not necessarily erased. Okay, in this sense of missing, after you can find something that it's a long process. I won't talk about the process because I make a method for that to dig in the memory. So there is a way to find. Okay, and before me, some people did some work also on that. So maybe this is not the place for that. But there is a way to dig in memory. But first of all, there is a feeling that something is missing, that something is not at the right place. You know, you when and every Caribbean walking with that sense, with that feeling that something is not properly articulated. So yeah, we live with what happened? Is it my window?
Nope, we just switched the slides a little bit. I'll bring them back up in a second.
Okay. And yeah, you feel it more than you know it first.
Sort of feeling the absence. I mean, I'm remembering how you described it. It's like walking in the dark and sort of feeling your way.
Yes.
Where you sense an absence of something and you sort of discover the periphery or the boundaries of that absence.
Actually, that's strange because 15 years ago, I made exactly this work. This work was like a lot of little works, you know, like a light in the dark, a complete dark, and the spectator getting in the space was falling on the ground. That was something like this experience. I live it. I make an artwork around that also. So yeah, it's really that. It's really that.
That's a wonderful evocation of both the literal sort of blackness and the figurative blackness too. It's amazing. We've had a question that builds on this, on the idea of play, and asks whether the chicken persona or costume is also a way of describing the absurdity of racism.
Yes.
And in particular, you know, in this location, not just in the Caribbean, but here in Canada.
Yes, it's not. It's on purpose. It's a white chicken. Okay, it's a white chick,
It's not by accident that it's a white chicken. That wasn't the only chicken suit you could find.
Yeah, it's a white chicken, and it's okay. And it did, when I was saying it's not only racism, I was saying for my daughter, it's not only racism, it's all discrimination around gender, around age, and so on and so on and so on. And the chicken, by his essence, is not aware of what's gonna happen after. He just live there, you know, and when they quick, he died. So that's all. So there's a kind of waiting for what's, yeah, the chicken is like the absurdity of everything. So yeah, it's like we know at home, all this chicken that you saw in the video, we call that it's a kind of chicken in Guadeloupe, but those chicken are flying. Okay.
I noticed they were moving around more than,
yeah,
more than most.
They are flying. The chicken that we know, this one, the white one, is not flying. So
No.
it's like so just staying on the ground, so waiting for eating stuff and being killed and eat. So.
And forgetting too, like you're saying, I mean, so much of your project is around recuperation or bringing back
Yes.
of memory, and the chicken is forgetting. It's this perpetual, it's always forgetting. Okay, so we're just about out of time, but one last question that from the from the participants, which has to do with language and names, and is noting how in the Caribbean so many folks sort of adopt the language and the names of the colonizers, and asking for you, how have you, I guess, struggled or worked with this idea of naming and language from Guadeloupe and into France, and in relation to your ancestors in particular. And maybe I'll call back the image of your ancestor here and ask about names and language in reference to her.
Okay, about the names. What is interesting actually in my ancestors' story, and this one actually of my grandmother, is her name. In the Caribbean, the France, after the end of slavery, they sent officials to give names. And they used to give names according to what had been said on the plantation, of the mood of the guy, or if you want to make a joke. So a lot of people have funny names and jokes name, and so. And her name was Carillon, Virginie Carillon. Virginie Carillon, Carillon meaning the one bell in French. It's bells. Carillon is like little stuff. And what you have to know, through naming, this name meaning something. It's mean that at that time, she came at the end, at the beginning of the 18th century, the 19th centuries. At that time, the slave trade was forbidden. The only way to have new slaves was the woman bear. So we cannot, how to say, punish them as before. So we put on them this collar with those bells. It's like a cow. We know at every day of or every hour of the day where they are. Okay, they used to flee. That means carillon, that you mean to flee. You used to flee. So your name saying that you're just a rebel, you're just fitting nowhere, man. So, actually I love this idea. And the other stuff is the way of naming my own artwork. I create what I call an alphabet, an emotional alphabet. Okay, so no work of mine have names like installation of this or little girl walking in the street. No, you won't find that. Okay, you will find sign that I create observing my space, my area. So what happened when I'm naming? Meaning that when you put your my artwork in your museum, something is not fitting in. When you try to have this problem with with the Museum of Fine Art of Montreal and Quebec, because when they try to write it down, it doesn't fit nowhere. So they write sign of something. So meaning that the work is not getting straight in the collection. Something is not fitting in the collection. The name is not fitting. So it's done for that to not fit totally in the and resist to and resist. So the naming is for that also. Resisting to the naming, resisting to this way of labeling my own work. You won't label it correctly. That won't happen. Because when you write it down, there is no sign on your keyboard with there's no sign on your keyboard with that. So yeah, it's like, but I did it on purpose.
For sure, I mean, we've encountered that, and it at the Gardner, and it points out the boxes or the systems that we sort of take, that we in museums say, or we in the culture at large take for granted and use to categorize things. It's like boxes that you can check, and working against those limitations. So great question. Thank you, Heidi, for sending that question in, and thank you, Eddy, for that answer. I'm glad we got to touch on emotional alphabet a bit too. So, well, what a fantastic hour. Thank you so much for spending time with us to learn about your work and to think more about your practice and some of your questions that you've been asking. I look forward to seeing what else you make and think about and do, and hope to see you in Toronto at some point, and in Montreal perhaps at another. In the meantime, thanks also to everyone for joining and participating. I hope you enjoyed our conversations today. We have a few more programs coming up on March 11th and March 17th with Julie Moon and Courtney Leonard. So stay tuned for those, and follow Eddy Firmin on Instagram. Check him out and stay tuned. So Eddy, thank you again very much. Great conversation. Thank you, everyone.